He's downstairs. Good evening and welcome to Success in the City. My name's Helen Webster and I'm with the lovely
Sandra Scott, and our fabulous guest today is
me, Phil Birss.
Phil Birss.
You are our fabulous guest. Amazing. Yeah. So this is our second time lucky because Phil was already last time and something had happened and I couldn't access my camera or microphone. And then I went the following week to see Palan in his studio and his IT guy come in and went and fixed it for me. So brilliant. So now I've got so it was cool. So thank you, Phil, for giving your time the second time.
Pleasure.
And we will find out everything that Phil does as we go along. But we do have new sponsors for the month of July. So we are sponsored by Complete Tech Solutions. So we will be talking a little techie things as we go along. Okay, which is quite cool because Phil's into techie things as well. So that's boss. So shout out to the kids, any little people who've done amazing things this week.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I don't mind.
Go on, who's going to go first? I'll go if you want me to.
Yep, go on, Phil.
I was at the Neurodiversity Conference 2 weeks ago, and I don't know if it's already been said, but the Neurodiversity Youth Choir were absolutely phenomenal. And they came into St. George's Hall and absolutely blew us away at lunchtime, and not a dry eye in the house. Really, really good. They were all... they were all crying. We were all crying, Sandra. It was really, really good. It was lovely. Really, really nice.
Amazing. Big shout out to them. What about you, San?
I've got a little angel doing French. I don't know if I mentioned her last week. She's an absolute dream. She's just 9 and she just does 30 minutes with me on a Friday, and she's just a little dream. And she's so excited. She loves French, and the mum's been trying to get her to do all type of clubs after school. She's not interested in anything. I thought, here's your mate. And she does French. And the mum said, I can't believe finally. And she's like so excited to come on. So I've got a little protege there because no one wants to do French. So I'm delighted. She's just a dream. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Big shout out to her. I'm going to give a shout out to our beautiful Ben. So Ben did his work experience with us for the past 2 weeks and he was just ace. So he's like a little big person because he's taller than me, but he's still only 14. Oh mate, he's like this, massive. But he spoke everything about FIFA. I know everything. I could be football manager now. I know everything about every single player. I'm absolutely on fire with all that. But he came and he went to, we went to lots of different places and we met lots of different people and he just rocked it. So massive shout out. I did say he was a dream to his mum, and his mum said he did say he was going to be. So I was the lucky one, like for him coming to do the work experience. So he was brilliant. He was ace. So and we had a dead exciting day on Friday. And we ended up going to the Anfield Wrap, and it was like just before Slob was like signed, so it was like latest. And so to throw him in an environment that's so exciting, and he was here, there, and everywhere, and he just went with the flow. So massive shout out to our beautiful Ben. So well done. Yeah, cool. Success of the week for you personally, something cool that's happened. Do you want to go first, Sam?
Yeah, it's a trivial, that's the dog. It's a little tiny success, but it's a big success. So I've had a giant mirror lent against the wall in the hall for ages, and I've not been happy where things are. And Chris came to my house, who's a handyman, put the big mirror up, moved the mirror from the hall into the lounge. These pictures behind me were over the other side, moved them, so it's all worked perfectly. So I'm really happy, and now I've got someone who can do little jobs for me because I'm used to stuff like that. So I'm delighted. So that was a little success, but it's nice now. Oh, and the mirror upstairs, so no one can break their neck on anything. It's all safe and it's all perfect. So brilliant. I was delighted with them.
Well
done.
Well done. Yeah, shows. What about you, Phil?
Mine's work related. So I've got Addy, which is our neurodiversity app, and probably talk about that later. And we actually just finished the B2B one, the website version of it that we could now present to corporate clients and corporate customers. So we've been head down for like 30 days trying to get that done, ready to present to a couple of companies. So we're super excited. It's pretty much ready to go now. So we're going to start sharing it to a few companies over the next week. So it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Amazing. Well done. And we will find out loads about Addy and how Phil got to where it was and how we all met and everything like that in a little bit. So we are going to give you loads of time. My success was that I went to the High Performance live show last night. So I bought the tickets. High Performance podcast. I listen to it all the time. I absolutely love it. Professor Damien Hughes, who's spoken at with the Growth Catalyst, who's amazing. He's just brilliant. So me and Rach went. I bought a ticket for her for her birthday, but I bought the tickets like last year, and she was like, "When are we going to see the Professor?" This was on Sunday night, and I was, "Oh, it's a Monday in July." And when I checked, I was like, "It's tomorrow night, mate."
Thank God she has.
I know, and I kept on thinking to myself, I must check them tickets, and then totally forgot to check the tickets, of course. So it was a good job. So we went to Manchester yesterday, but it was amazing, and it was just brilliant. So I highly recommend it to anybody. The High Performance podcast. So we're going to play this or that with you, Phil. Okay.
Let's do it.
Stan, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, you go first, Hal.
Okay, so we have got a new sponsor, and it's Complete Tech Solutions. So I'm going to ask a bit of a techie one, the first one. Okay, I'm trying to theme the first one. Okay, it's not that techie, mate. Okay, I'm going to ask Phil first. Laptop or desktop?
Laptop. Out on the road, on the move, never stop moving. Yeah, laptop.
Yeah. What about you, Stan?
Laptop 100%. I can go and teach someone in a coffee shop. It's great. I can send an email anywhere. I love it. It's, as you say, it's the portability of it. Fantastic.
Laptop 100% for me as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Phil, Apple or not Apple? A Mac or not?
It's like choosing between your favorite child, Sandra. That's the problem with that question. So I was a Windows guy from like a teenager right through till I was like 35. And then one of the lads in our office begged me to buy him a Mac because he was a designer, and I bought it. And it was like $3,000. And I was like, what is this? And everything's different on it. Go on, Sandra, go on.
He got the all singing, all dancing version for $3,000 then.
He did. He was like our top designer, and I got it. And I couldn't use it, honestly, Sandy. It was like a different language. It was like learning French. And he just sat there chipping away at me for 6 months. And in the end, one day he was out, and I had to use his computer. And it was this thing that was just on his computer, and I had to sit there for an hour and work it out. And at the end of the hour, I was like, "Oh, it is better."
Well, they give you lessons in the Apple shop as well. So I tend to use Microsoft products on the Apple Mac, just to everyone else, but it's just the aesthetics. Apple hands down for me. Definitely. But Helen, you don't feel the same way, do you?
So I don't have a Mac, but I'm Apple as in my phone. So I've been Apple phones since like I think I got the iPhone 4 or something like that. So I've been Apple on a phone. I don't think I could change from iPhone, but I've just always had a laptop. I've never had a Mac. And I know people, do go onto them and they're just like, oh, they're so easy. But I think a bit like you, Phil, you sort of know what you know. And maybe, if I was to get one and play with it, then I'd probably swing that way and, think, oh, yeah, it's like genius and stuff. Yeah. So until I get an Apple Mac, I don't know.
Fair enough. That's cool. On the list then.
Okay. I'm going to ask Phil this first.
Okay.
Phil and I met. Phil did one of the master classes on the course that I've just been on. And he lectures to a lots of different groups and things like that. So, Phil, would you rather lecture to students who are brand new on their journey, or like existing sort of businessy people, or older people or professionals who have got a little bit of experience?
I think I prefer the experience, if I'm really honest. I like teaching the kids who are a little bit younger and kind of you may be just starting out in their careers. But I think you can have really meaty conversations with people that have been around the block a bit and they kind of understand how a business works. So I'd definitely go with probably professionals.
Yeah. What about you, Sam?
That's a tough one because I'm enjoying teaching some of the little ones at the moment, but I really, really enjoy someone who like speaks. So I had a guy who wanted to read Harry Potter in French with us, and that was brilliant. So I love doing advanced stuff as well. But I think if you teach all different levels, when you've got someone who, like I'm doing a Latin American book with someone in Spanish as well, when you've got, so it's nice to do the different, you appreciate that, because if you were doing the higher level stuff all the time, you wouldn't be excited when someone who's new to something was inspired, you know, like even just going into a client, we went to Castro's in Hackentay, which is brilliant, off Dale Street on Thursday morning. And we took the group 8 o'clock in the morning. They opened an hour early for us. They went in, ordered, and it's good people feel when they ask for their stuff in Spanish and get everything. And I love all of that. So it's very difficult to choose. It's a mixture, really.
You've got to for the rest of your life.
Advanced, higher level. Then, if I had to pick, advanced. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you're stretching yourself constantly in that. Yeah.
I think I would go brand newbies who don't know anything, because I think the excitement, and I always say to them, like, be little sponges, you know what I mean, and soak everything up. And I love it when they grasp something, you know, they couldn't potentially do something, and then you get them little wins. So I think for me, it's like those hits of, you know, when they get the little wins, I get a hit from that. So I think that's so I think the little people for me, yeah, the younger on the journey. Cool. Go on, Sam.
Okay then, Phil. I'm going to go off course now. Okay.
Let's do it.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, do you know what? I am a coffee fan. I love coffee, but I can't have either. I'm not intolerant, but I get quite a strong reaction to caffeine, so I don't drink tea, coffee, Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah. Ellen, you're like that with coffee, aren't you? With a lot of coffee.
So if I have like, I taught myself to like coffee. So when I go to New York, I can say coffee. So I think I was about maybe 30 odd when I first had my first coffee. But now if I have a coffee in the morning, I'm okay. If I have two, you know, like one from a coffee shop, my skin crawls like that. And I feel all like really, but I got a coffee on, was it Monday morning, and the girl did me a large, and she said, "Oh," I drove through, and she went, "I've done you a large." She went, "It's all right." And I went, "Oh yeah, okay." And then I was like twitching all day, so yeah, I'm not very good at it. I'm
the same. Honestly, I did it for years, and I was shaking. I was like, "Why am I shaking? This is weird." And I read up about it, and it's just your body's just saying, "Slow down. It's too much stimulant."
But I can drink tea.
Can you? I had to cut tea out as well. So I'm really sensitive to the caffeine, I think. And Coca-Cola, I haven't had Coke in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. My mum, like you, my mum stopped drinking coffee when I was 11 and tea. She was and she went into anaphylaxis off it because she just got too much and everything. And I could drink a cup of coffee and go to bed, no bother.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we have strong coffee, really strong coffee. Or we have a mocha pot and everything. I love it.
I love a mocha, Sandra. Love a mocha.
I try to keep it down to 2 a day, though. Today I will have had 3, but generally, I just have it all the time. Don't I? It's no for me, but there we are.
Yeah.
So, okay. Cool.
My last go. Okay, it's July the 4th.
Yes.
So I'm going a little bit topical.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask Phil first. Would you rather go to a baseball game or an American football game in the States, like in the big theater?
Oh.
Do you know what? The problem is they're both quite slow games, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've watched both of them recently. I've got into both of them, and like American football goes on for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I think baseball's like nearly 2.5, 3 hours as well.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm really into baseball. I watched the Moneyball film the other week.
Brilliant.
I'm really into baseball, and I want to get out there with the kids. And I bought them like a little rounders kit the other day. So we're all about baseball this summer. I'm going baseball.
Brilliant.
Brilliant,
What about you,
yeah.
Sam?
Baseball, definitely. 100%. And I've seen that film as well, Phil. It's really good.
Yeah.
What about you, Helen?
So I on my bucket list is to go and see the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
You know, to actually go to you know, to watch the Yankees play, and I've had that on my list since I was about 13 or 14. But then I'd also massively love to go to the Super Bowl. So I think I'd have to stick with the Yankees, the baseball game, because that was like my first sort of. But yeah, and any big sporting event, but one of those, if anyone's watching and wants to give me a ticket, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go on, Sam, let's go.
Okay, let's go. Would you rather go on holiday to a beach resort or a ski resort, Phil?
Beach. I think beach. Yeah. I like the sun. I'm not great in the sun because of my heritage, but I do really love the sun and I love the beach, and I like to chill because I spend most of my time at 1,000 miles an hour. So calm, focus, chill out for a bit.
Yeah.
Skiing 100%.
Yeah. I like skiing, but if I had to choose between the two, it would have to be the beach because I like the sunshine and to get me through winter.
Yeah.
Although you can have some lovely sunny times in the mountains as well.
100%, yeah. The best day I was skiing with like a t-shirt and a pair of sunnies and a baseball cap, and it was just like ace. Yeah, just like living the dream. Yeah, cool. Okay, so it is the second time Phil's been on, but he didn't come on the first time because of tech.
I was going to say how
I know.
Yes.
So Phil was one of the I don't know, lecturers, speakers in the masterclass that I was at with the Growth Catalyst, which was with Liverpool University, which was phenomenal. It was amazing. And then Phil came and did one of his masterclasses, which was brilliant, and it was around marketing and lots of things like that. And then we met at the Baltic Ventures when you did another great talk about marketing and stuff. But when you were talking about marketing and what people's why and all this, that, and the other. He spoke about his new app called Addy, and I was like, oh, what's that? And it's for people with ADHD to and neurodiverse and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to stop there because I'm going to let Phil explain how he got from being in marketing to where he is now. Okay, so over to you, Phil. You've got about 35-ish minutes, and Sandra and I will butt in at the same time and ask the same question.
I'll try not to speak for 35 minutes, but I'll give you a bit of a potted history just to kind of set the scene, I guess. So I'm kind of I'm a failed student. I didn't do very well academically, GCSEs, A levels. Went to university, didn't finish my degree. Started a company when I was like 19 at university, and that just took over my life. So I was kind of day one, I feel like I was destined to be an entrepreneur, even though I didn't really know what that word meant, entrepreneurship, back 25 years ago. I did 5 years of sales, which I sort of loved and hated in equal measure. And then I found marketing in about 2007. It was actually my dad. He had a cleaning company on the Wirral. And he said to me, Phil, I've heard about these websites. Can you build me a website? You're a young kid. I was 27 at the time. And I said to him, yeah, sure, I'll build you a website. I'd never done it before. And I sort of researched it and found WordPress. There's this crazy platform you could build your own websites on. So I spent about a month and I learned how to build a website. And that was great. Put it live and everyone was very happy. And then everyone sort of said, so what? I said, oh, shoot, I better go and learn how to do some marketing. So I learned about digital marketing. So SEO and advertising on Google. Another 2 or 3 months down the line, I came back and said, right, Dad, I'm going to put you on Google. And he was like, fantastic. And it did pretty well because it was a pretty niche market here on the Wirral. And roll forward sort of 10 years later, I'd been a project manager. I'd been sort of head of group marketing. And then I started my own agency in 2014. And we sort of came into 2021, 22, COVID hit, absolute disaster for the marketing world, really, really bad. And we decided to close down the agency, and I decided just to go back to doing consulting and teaching and training and stuff, hence where I met Helen. At the same time, which is kind of fortuitous in one sense, my my partner Joanne, she got diagnosed with ADHD coming up to 18 months ago now, nearly 2 years. And I'd never heard of ADHD outside of a 6-year-old boy until that point. You know what I mean? And we sort of went through the process of getting diagnosed, then we got through the process of getting titrated, which means, you know, getting the right medicine. And then Joanne will be the first to tell you that there's this kind of mourning period, this kind of period where you go, when you're diagnosed with a neurological condition later in life, you kind of sort of, you mourn for the loss of the life you feel like you probably should have had, or you sort of deserved, or you sort of didn't get to have because you weren't aware of this condition. And, you know, all jokes aside, TikTok was really useful for Joe to learn about the condition and to speak to people with lived experience, to understand that their brains were different and maybe their brains were like her brain. So we got to the point where Joe was medicated and she was kind of like settling into her new life as a 38-year-old woman post-diagnosis. And she was looking for all the tools, all the apps, all the solutions, because the world's full of apps. There's bloody millions of apps everywhere. And she tried every productivity app in the world. She tried Todoist and calendars and lists. And she's got about 1 million notepads stacked up in her study where she's written lists on, and then just ignored it for, you know, the following week or the following month. And there'll be so many people listening to this or perhaps watching this later. They'll be like, well, you know, that's me. I do that. I struggle with that. The difference is when it's neurological is it's every day, it's all the time, it's 24/7, and it's exhausting for people like Joe. Anyway, bring the story right to today. About 12 months ago, Joe woke up at 4 a.m. and disappeared. And she came back about 3 hours later with this sort of 10-page design. I was like, what have you been doing? She said, I've designed an app. Can you build it for me? And I said, no, go back to bed, you crazy woman. And you know, once I'd calmed down, I'd made her some breakfast, and she was like, no, I'm deadly serious. This app doesn't exist in the world, and I think it'll help people like me get stuff done. And I said, go on then, what is it? And she said, have you ever used Tinder? And I immediately said, no, of course, darling. I've never downloaded it in my life. But hypothetically, if I had, you would see the card system. You can swipe left or right, and you can see all the people who may or may not be appropriate to you. I had to research it thoroughly after this, Sandra, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah. And Joe basically said to me that a list of things to do doesn't work because people with ADHD struggle to prioritize. They struggle to know what things are more important. And she said things like calendars, so Microsoft Outlook, they don't work because it's all a bit blurry, it's all a bit confused, and you don't quite trust yourself that the things you put in the calendar for the next hour is actually the most important thing to do. Chances are you might also turn up late because they're not great with time management and kind of time blindness. Anyway, we built the app. We did an MVP, a minimal viable product last year, and we presented it to the ADHD Foundation here in lovely Liverpool. Tony Lloyd, who I know you know, Sandra, who is an absolute superstar of a guy. He's been so helpful. But not just him, the whole team at the foundation have been fantastically supportive.
Yeah, lovely people. Yeah.
Lovely people. And we presented it to them, and they basically just thought it was great, you know, really good idea. A bunch of problems, bunch of holes, bunch of technical challenges, you know, half of it didn't work. But that's life. That's what you do when you develop a product. You just kind of get something ready to show people and get a bit of feedback. And then pretty much since about December, we've been developing what we call the production app, the final app. And we launched it on May the 2nd of this year. And that pretty much brings us up to date, I think.
So was there a reason why you launched it on May the 2nd, or was it just the date that, you know, was it a choice, or was it just, oh, we're ready?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah.
We meant to launch it on February the 2nd, but we were delayed in getting our funding. So we needed our investment. We raised some equity investment from a venture capital company in Chester. And they were struggling with the financial year and everything that's going on with all it's just very confusing. So we thought, well, if we're going to wait for the money anyway, let's just do a little bit more development on the app. And it just happened to be that March, I think May the 2nd was a Monday.
I think I'd had the lecture with you just before, and you were talking about launching it.
Yeah,
It was around about the time when you came to speak to us, and then you launched it. Yeah.
that's right. So that brings me up to date. That's everything I know about neurodiversity. Don't challenge me anymore, please. I'm joking.
So have people been trialing the app for you first? What positive feedback have you had about it?
Great. So let me throw some numbers at you to make me sound really successful. We've had about 15,000 people install the app, so download it from the Apple and Play Store, which is unbelievable. It's fantastic. We've had about 650, maybe 700 people buy a subscription, so actually pay for it and use it. And they're like the key numbers. When in the first 6 months, it's all about what acquisition, getting customers on board, and it's a numbers game. It's like you get a big lump of people, install it, some of them trial it, some of them stick with it, and you make money from the monthly subscriptions and hopefully trying to keep them over the long term. So yeah, we're doing pretty good for our first 8 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. So I have downloaded it, and because I thought, you're coming on the show and I needed to have a look at it and stuff like that. So I downloaded it and I've used it. And so for me, it's great, and I've subscribed to it. So I still use it. So for me, yeah. The bit that I like is that you can, you were talking about the reward system.
Yeah.
So I'll let you explain the reward system to it.
So for anyone that who isn't familiar with like the term neurodiversity, there's many different conditions under that. And most of them, so ADHD and autism particularly, the brains of those people work slightly differently. And one of the challenges is a sort of a dysregulation of dopamine. They don't quite get the same amount of dopamine firing in the brain. And weirdly, when you get a dopamine hit, it actually helps you focus on a task. It's very strange. It's part of the reward system. So the idea is normally that a neurotypical person would know they want to do something, remember that they got the dopamine hit, they do the thing and they get the dopamine hit. It doesn't quite work the same with someone who's neurodivergent. So they need a little bit more motivation. So one of the things we put into the app is what's called a gamification engine. Sounds very fancy, but basically you get points and rewards for doing stuff. And that in itself is not particularly original. There's lots of apps that kind of do that on the market. But for our audience, we think it's really important. And it's not just points for the sake of points. You actually get really sort of like tangible things. So you get stuff to change the app, change the look of the app, new features, new sounds, new things that actually in reality are really important for the ADHD brain because they actually trigger more dopamine because they're new and they're exciting. So it's kind of got a self-fulfilling, I was going to say prophecy, but that's a bit grandiose. It's the whole app is designed to make you use it more, which is good for us and it's good for the user because the more they use it.
That's absolutely genius because when you're saying about gamification, one of the things is a lot of people who have ADHD and autism, as you said, they very much become addicted to games very quickly, even to anything. And it's that same quality, those same features, but for something positive that will enhance their life. And it's massively motivating if you get stars or things like this. And I was doing Duolingo for Arabic. I had to delete it. I just had to because I don't game at all because I'm instantly addicted. So I don't have anything like that on my phone because I will just lose my day. So I was doing the Arabic for Duolingo and I just thought, delete that now. Because I was so angry I hadn't gone up a league because I had to work, obviously, and live my life and didn't have time. And I thought, delete that. And whereas this, you would get rewards for getting through your tasks, in fact. So I really like the concept of that. It sounds brilliant. And so does your wife like Joe? She found it really beneficial then.
Yeah, Joe loves it. Joe likes it because, well, predominantly because she gets to tell us what she wants to build in the app next. That's like her favorite thing. Like, I wonder if we should have a mindfulness bell. And I'm like, yeah, all right, we'll put a mindfulness bell in. But it's wonderful because she's like customer number one. She's like the person we look at her every day and go, Joe, what do we do next? Because if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for anybody else. And just to go back to your last point, Sandra, about the kind of the addiction side of things, there is a serious element to this. You know, people with neurological conditions tend to have what's called comorbidities. They tend to struggle with other stuff as well. And it's something that we've really, really thought hard about. And whilst I completely agree that we are effectively trying to make the product more addictive, there is no game in there. There's no way of sort of wasting time. It is all about getting stuff done that in theory moves your life forward. So I agree. I think Joe always says to me, in life, everything's a task. Taking the bins out, getting a job, picking up the kids from school, it's all just tasks to be done. And that's all we're trying to do, really, just help people just live a more productive life and feel like they're doing stuff and having an enjoyable life, I guess.
So before Jo was diagnosed, was she aware of ADHD? Did she know she had it, or did somebody bring it up because it was later in life? How was she as a young person or as a child in school?
Do you know, that's a really, really interesting question, Helen, because I've been with her 11 years now. So for the first 9 years, I just thought Jo was Jo, and I loved her for who she was. But when you look back at her career history and then her life in school, the patterns are really, really obvious. And what you find is, or what happened was during COVID, everyone was sitting at home, everyone was breaking from their usual patterns of going to work and all the structure that you normally have in your day. And people were having to sort of manage their own day. And all these kind of idiosyncrasies started to really, really get stronger and stronger. And people, if we're really honest, the NHS was struggling. And a lot of people turned to social media to get answers and to YouTube, etc. And that's where Jo started the journey, if I'm really honest, Helen. It wasn't necessarily a friend. She'd seen things online. And then I tell a lie, actually, she was in the playground and one of the mums said, "Oh, my daughter's just been diagnosed with ADHD." And Jo said, "Oh, that's interesting. Why?" And the mum explained the sort of the traits that this girl had. And Jo sat there and it was like a white sheet moment. She was like, "That's me. When I was 7, that was me." And then the mum said, "Oh, right, well, I've got ADHD too, so it's probably hereditary." And Jo went, "Oh my God, that might make sense." And then she literally went into the TikTok rabbit hole, read everything, because hyperfocus is a big part of ADHD. So she spent like a month hyperfocusing, watching everything, listening to everything. And then she kind of just turned up in the bedroom one day and said, "Phil, I think I've got ADHD." And that's how it started, basically.
Wow. So before Jo had said, and I know you were saying you thought ADHD was like young, little boys and like 6-year-old naughty little boys type thing, for somebody living with somebody who has ADHD and, she was just Jo and now she's still just Jo. What was when she was diagnosed, what was your feelings around that?
I don't want to fit to a stereotype, Helen, but I was quite a typical bloke, to be honest, because during COVID there was a lot of problems. Everyone was struggling with finances, with kids being at home. There was so much going on. I'll be really honest, my brain was already quite full, and I struggled with it, to be honest. I really did, because I didn't know what it was. I was confused by it. I wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't sure whether I was going to say the wrong thing, and that's a really big thing with people that kind of who live with neurological conditions. And I did struggle, but about sort of 6 weeks later, I think almost the sort of shock had worn off, and I sort of started to process it a little bit, and I started to read a little bit about it. And I'll be really honest, it took me a while. It did take me a while, because it was just a condition that I'd never heard of, and I almost didn't believe it was in adults until I read it in paper and started to look at the statistics and started to look at how underdiagnosed it was. And I was blown away. I was completely blown away. And it was difficult.
Yeah, it's 1 in 20 as a statistic, 1 in 20. So in every single classroom, there will be, stereotypically at least one person, if not more, with ADHD. but it is underdiagnosed. But it's quite different in females than males as well, how it comes up. So, and often, like girls, they'll learn to please and mask the symptoms. So like you were saying, when you're spending a whole day together, you would have seen things that you hadn't seen before because it was day after day after day after day. And we all have one day where maybe we forget that, or we do X, Y, whatever. But when you see it, it probably would have been in your face a bit more as well. And there's a lot of misgivings, you know. People think, oh, well, you can't have a degree if you've got it, or you can't do this, you can't do that. And that's nonsense. But that's because of lack of knowledge, you know. And as you say, it tends to be more apparent with children, which is why people associate with kids. But you have ADHD your whole life, you know, and sometimes there's misdiagnosis in pensioners. If they got dementia, if people don't know them, and they haven't, they've just had some of those those traits their whole life, really, you know. But I think it's marvelous to have something that genuinely helps people, because as a person I've had a diagnosis for 11 years. And one of the things that happens is people say, oh, if you do this, and I've been told this will cure you, this cures ADHD, that nothing cures, can't cure it. You can help it, you can support it, you can make life better for you. And of course, within the realms of, you know, all neurodivergencies, as they're referred to now, the spectrum disorders. So there are traits that are similar, but people might have their own little individual quirks and things like that. And I think with the app, it's what supports people individually, and they lean towards what helps them. You know, it's not one size fits all. And it's like you were saying before, now I love lists, but I will lose the list or mislead the list. And I did a course once and they said, you know, prioritize in order. But I don't. I go through whatever's easiest on the list because I can take it off, and I like to do that. So when you said that, I thought, oh, that sounds quite interesting with the app, you know. And I think if you acknowledge what it is, you get what it is, you understand it. It's all about, for me, not using it as an excuse, but to say, okay, well, how can I support myself? How can I help myself still achieve that? Because when managed effectively, there are so many benefits to having ADHD. Because a lot of people, when they find their niche, they will absolutely excel. I do not believe for 1 minute that I will speak 5 languages fluently and smattering of others, having grown up in a terraced house in Liverpool and never gone on holiday, if I didn't have ADHD. I firmly believe that. You know, I liked it, I was into it, that was it. But it's about managing it. So I think it's brilliant what you've done. I think it's really good. And I think it's fabulous that you were inspired by your wife, really, getting to do a diagnosis. I just think it's fun. But, and how clever are you, though, switching from the website to doing the app to doing, you know, that's very, very skillful.
Oh, I've been doing it for 10 years, to be honest, Sandra. We've been building apps, you know, and we've been doing marketing and stuff. So it's kind of bread and butter to me. I think if I'm really, really if I'm really honest with myself, and I've said this to a number of people, I think I might have said it to you, Helena, last time we met, I'm not sure, but I feel like a lot of the time when you're running an agency, you're always selling, you're always trying to get the next project, you're trying to get it delivered, get it done, get the client happy, get paid. It's a bit of a conveyor belt. And what I love about this project is, number one, I can focus on it, and I think for my own kind of brain, I like to be able to focus too. I have a hyperfixation that I enjoy as well, but it's just really, really nice. And I hope it doesn't sound trite, but I actually really like trying to do something that's helping people. And I don't feel like I've done a lot of that in my career. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know, on a personal level, I get out of bed every morning feeling like there's too much to do. There's too many things I could fix today, and that just keeps me going, and I love it. I won't lie, I love it. It's great.
Oh, fantastic!
I love the fact that you know, it's growing all the time, and you know, as you were saying, you know, with the rewards and things, you can change the color of your screen, and you can do other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at growing. You know, there's lots of bite-sized education videos and messages on there. So, you know, a little 2-minute video about which was amazing, like women in the menopause, you know, menopause and ADHD. little things that people possibly wouldn't really think of. And so for me, I thought that education part was really special, because you could potentially say to somebody, oh, just watch that, because it's like literally 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So somebody, maybe you're having a conversation with somebody, and because for me, it's about, you need to educate the people who don't have the disability. The people who have the disability already know what it feels like. Yeah. So because I work with, people with lots and lots of different disabilities, I haven't got to teach somebody who's blind how to be blind. I need to teach the world how to accept somebody who's blind. So if you've got somebody, you can get that, and you can say, oh, have a little watch of that.
Yeah.
And it's not you explaining it, it's somebody else saying that this is a real thing. It's not a made up condition that people have just all of a sudden thought it's a great thing to have. And I do think over the past sort of maybe 5 or 6 years, awareness has grown. And I think, people like you and Joe putting these apps out and stuff like that, it just helps so many people. Your target audience, are you looking at grown-ups? Are you looking at little people? Are you looking at teenagers? Are you going to develop it to be a childish, type of version?
It's actually about the implications for people at school and that.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a great question. So, for those who don't know me, I'm ridiculously ambitious. I want to do everything all at once, solve all the problems in the world. But I've kind of learned with a bit of maturity that I can't do that. So we're starting with adults with ADHD. That's who ADDY's for. So it is actually 13-year-old plus, and we've got probably a couple of hundred people who are in that kind of 13 to 25 bracket, actually, which is really quite interesting.
Brilliant.
The second thing we're doing, so going back a step, is I mentioned we launched this B2B product. We also completely agree with you, Helen. We need to get out there into corporate institutions, into academic institutions, and we need to create content and training resources to help the people who don't understand this kind of world, who don't live it every day, really try and understand it. And that world, that neurodiversity in the workplace world, is very fragmented, and there's not that many technology solutions. So that's the second thing we're doing. And then beyond that, there's loads of cool ideas. We'd love to do a game for kids. We'd love to do like a really weird one, but we'd love to do a dating app that we've nicknamed Neurospicy. That's like that's purely Joe's idea. Joe's developing a dating app. I'm not quite sure why, but she's really, really keen that I do that.
Depends how good you are at creating the app.
It depends. I'm going to have to do it really badly, so she just doesn't get any ideas. But you're right. There's a whole world of people out there, and we need to try and help everybody, but we can't do it all at once. We have to do one thing at a time. But it's great fun, and there's so much to be cracking on with.
And so did you talk about it, or have a stand at the foundation conference, the neurodivergent conference we were talking about? Was it well received?
Yeah, do you know it was? Yeah, we had loads of people coming up asking for a tour around the platform. Quite a couple of big companies actually, which is really nice. Hopefully, going to talk to them in the next couple of weeks. But more, the most important thing for us actually being at the conference was just hearing the stories from the speakers and hearing different perspectives on neurodiversity from all different angles, all different parts of this kind of rich world that we live in. And it was a very emotional day. It really was. And I'm not neurodivergent. It was a very, very emotional day. And it was less a conference, more of sort of a community gathering and sort of support network group. It was a wonderful day. Thoroughly enjoyed. I'd recommend anybody, neurodiverse or not, go and attend next year's.
We went last year, didn't we, we went to the ADHD Foundation conference last year because we had the products we displayed there that was good fun and a different way to learn and that, so that was cool. And we went to the dinner in the evening. It was lovely, wasn't it? Yeah, it's so lucky to have St. George's in our city because it's such an impressive venue and people come from outside and they're just like, they can't believe it. It's just stunning building, and I think it's a nice venue for it as well. So that's good. Was Joe able to go to the conference as well?
No, Joe found the conference probably a little bit too much for her kind of brain. It's a bit too many people, she calls it. So she joined us all day and then she went home and looked after the kids in the evening. But I was just going to say, actually, isn't it lovely? You've got the the Neurodiversity Conference, one of the biggest conferences in the world in Liverpool, and also the Neurodiversity Awards later in the year in Liverpool, you know, at the Anglican Cathedral. That's such a big kind of recognition of what we're trying to do in Liverpool. And I don't know, it's just wonderful. I'm really glad to be at the heart of it. And
really lucky when I was at the ADHD Foundation, people used to phone up and go, "Where are you locally?" Because they'd phone up from like Hertfordshire or somewhere, or no, somewhere in Scotland or whatever. Just go, "No, we're in Liverpool," because it's a national organisation now. And they was like, "What?" And they thought it was a regional thing. And I was saying no. And I used to say to people, "You're really lucky you live in Liverpool," because it, you know, it was on the doorstep for them and things like that. Because the provision is very different depending on where you live in the country. It affects what's available for you massively. So we are Liverpool, definitely. We're lucky for so many reasons, actually. But and we're a lot more open-minded and supportive about, like, there's been a lot of campaigns about autism and like to make the airport autism friend. We've got people who are just passionate and they campaign and they speak out and they fight for things and go, okay, you know, with your wife, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to make the app. And what Helen and I always say is, our show is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things to inspire others to do things in their local community. And that's massively what you've done here. You come from the city region and you've done something really just quite radical, really, that other people have tried. There are some little things on the market, but I've never found them great, I must be honest. They're not great at all. So I quite like the concept of this. And you see, me now telling me I'm going to get rewards and points for achieving things. So I'm on that now. So I think it's wonderful what you've done. I really do.
Thank you, Sandra. And I just add to that, you know, we're absolutely at the start of the journey. You know, we're technically 12 months in, but we've only been launched 6 to 8 weeks. And all we want is people to engage with us, to partner with us, to give us feedback, give us thoughts, do collaborative ideas. Let's do campaigns together. Let's just help each other, because it's a massive market, and everybody needs to trial all these products. And you quite rightly before, I think you said it, Sandra, that not everybody's going to get value from them, and that's cool. We just want the right people to find the right products at the right time that help them. So yeah, delighted to talk about it, to be honest. It's very nice to chat.
But I think as well, you know, don't be put off that it's an ADHD app. You know, I think anybody can, you know, and I think the great thing that you did, Phil, was you give a 7-day free trial, so people could download it, use it for 7 days, and then they could either sign up or not sign up. So I would advise everybody to just get on it and have a little look. You know, you haven't got to be neurodiverse to use it. No. It might just help the way your brain works, you know, and how you see different things. And so how can we help you, Phil? What can we do to help you?
You invited me on the show, and I am delighted to be here. That genuinely is all I want. We've got via the 2 app stores, there is tens of millions of people. Getting customers, it might sound a bit weird, is not the problem. The problem is getting the brand awareness out there in the communities and the partnerships, which is why we're so lucky to be working with Tony and the ADHD Foundation. Because actually the real challenge, the real problem is the explaining neurodiversity to everybody else. That's the thing that I really want to focus on, is that I want to work with organizations, academic or corporate, who want to invest in education, diversity and inclusion. And I want to develop this product with them. And I want to speak to people who've got the same passion and enthusiasm for helping the 20% of the workforce, which is massive, who think a little bit differently and need a little bit more support. So that's all I really want. That's all I really want is some conversation.
You know, some of the people in your divergent, they're such a valuable asset to the workforce. They can be very, particularly, like, I always think about people with dyslexia. They're massively innovative as a rule, and many people have such great ideas, and they can visualize, they can see things like that. And you know, that's not, I don't have those skills. So I think that's great. And it's a lot, people bring a lot to the table. And if you can just support them in a certain way to enable them to do their thing, it helps them achieve, and it can only benefit business and organizations massively. But it's a big thing at the moment about getting into neurodivergency in the workforce. I'm giving a talk a couple of weeks to about 900 people on a global event for a company, and I think it's really, really important. And from a minimal effort, the benefit you get back as a business is massive. You know, brilliant.
You wouldn't say to a person that needed to have wheelchair access, there's nothing you can do. You know, you just wouldn't say that. And many of the neurodiverse conditions are also protective disabilities. And I think most companies just aren't aware of that. And I think what you're doing, Sandra, speaking to that group there, is what we all need to do wherever we possibly can. It's just bang the drum, tell as many people as we can. And at the same time, you know, work collaboratively, because it's not a dictatorship. It's not one way. There's many different ways to approach this problem. So thank you for everything you're doing, Sandra, and thank you for all the work that you've done in the past with the foundation. So it's really good.
Amazing, brilliant. So we will share the link and everything on our pages, you know, to Addy, and you know, get everybody to just have a little download and have a little play with it and have a little mooch around. And you know, if it's not for you, then that's okay, but it might be for somebody else, and you can share it with somebody else. Because for me, it's great, so I use it. So I would highly recommend it, and I won't recommend anything that I don't believe in. So yeah, highly recommend it. Brilliant. So talking about red faces, have you had a slightly embarrassing moment that has happened to you? Do you want me to go first?
Go on, you go. Sorry, no, I was just trying to remember.
So it was it's a bit of a sad red face, really.
Yeah,
so
hilarious.
And well, no, it's not hilarious. It's quite sad. So the Ocean Food Bar at the top of our road, which is the Chippy. So Mike is the guy who runs it, and Mike's dad had the Chippy and his grandfather had the Chippy. So, you know, years and years down the line. And really sad, Mike's dad passed away. And so it was on, you know, socials. And anyway, went and got a takeaway. And Mike was back behind the counter. And I was like, oh, he's back. That's cool. Like, you know, and he had a beard. And I said, your beard looks lovely. I said, you really suit a beard. I said, and I went on and on about this beard. And then Sarah works, and I said to Sarah, doesn't he look lovely with his beard? And anyway, he just sort of like looked, and he turned round, and she said to me, you know, his dad's died. And I said, yeah. And she said, he can't shave he can't shave after. And I went, all right, okay. So anyway, I come home and I had to Google it. And in certain faiths and religions, they don't shave for 30 days after the funeral, because it's like a period of mourning, which I didn't know. And if I'd have known, I would never have sort of like made a big issue. But he did look good with his beard. He did suit it. And so, yeah, I was a bit like gutted. So, yeah, a bit of a red face for me.
At least that was dead positive, and you said he suited it. At least you didn't go in and go, oh, you don't suit that, shave that off, which is what I would have done, let's face it.
So yeah, that's my sort of like sad red face this week. What about you, San?
I think I'm all right. It's a miracle.
Wow.
I know. We'll just wait.
Must be doing good then. What about you, Phil?
Mine's actually a couple of weeks back. You might remember this. You probably didn't notice this, Helen. I'd be very grateful if we didn't notice it. But when I did the talk at the masterclass in Liverpool, I always, for some reason, I always like take my full suit and stuff and I put it in the car and I go like casual and I work in Liverpool. And this time I just completely forgot to put my suit in the car. So I don't know if it was yours, but I turned up in like t-shirts and like shorts, and Richard, who runs it, walked in and went, "What the hell are you doing like that?" And I was like, just forgotten everything. I've just had one of those days. But I don't think anyone noticed, but I don't know.
No, it's a cool, relaxed sort of like environment, isn't it?
Marketing.
And it was nice and sunny, so you fitted in with everybody. Yeah. That was cool. Yeah. I love that. That's great.
Cool.
Yeah. Shout out to the grown-ups, any grown-ups who've done amazing things this week. I am going to shout out to the Anfield Wrap. So John Gibbons from the Anfield Wrap, Ben, our work experience, I phoned John. I said, can we bring him like for the last day? So he'd done something cool. So Slobbers Live was signing, and he rang me and he said, "Hell, can you get in here quick?" So Ben and I ran from the Baltic down to Man Island, and we were able to sit in on the interviews before it had even the story hadn't broke. It broke live while we were there. And Ben had his little earphones on, and we went into 4 different interviews, and he pressed the play button and the record button on a few of the things, and he just like lived his best life. So to everybody in the Anfield Wrap, they're just gorgeous in there. So when he walked in, they were all like, "Hiya, Ben, you're all right," you know. And he has Football with Ben on Instagram, and they shared it on theirs and said, like, you know, give him a follow. And and young Josh is amazing, and Ash and everyone. So they just, so massive shout out to all the gang in the Anfield Wrap for looking after us on Friday. What about you, Sam?
That's mental, because my friend who lives in New Zealand messaged me of Josh at the Anfield Wrap yesterday, and I thought, how weird is that? And you've just mentioned him. There you go. Well, loads of people doing great stuff locally, really. Natasha Jonas, who won a medal again, world champion. And I did a few things this week. All the people, we had Jimmy on for the Northwest Cancer Research Charity, so they had their cycle rides. We had all people doing that. And then the Merseyside Women of the Year Awards, Sarah Jacko, as we call her, came runner-up, which is no mean achievement for one of the awards. So we're a lot of successful people this week doing cool things.
And everybody on the X Factor who comes second goes on to do bigger and better things.
There you go. I'll message her and tell her that.
Yeah. We'll get her on, because we have asked her to come on, haven't we? Yeah. What about you, Phil? Shout out to the grown-ups.
Do you know what? I'm going to shout out to Dr. Ed Lynch. I don't know if you know Ed, but he's an A&E doctor in the Royal, and he's also got a technology platform which is fantastic, launched recently. But he's also doing the Liverpool Wellbeing Festival this Thursday in St. Paul's Square. Oh, there's all interesting people, all exhibitors. Addy's there. We're there talking about holistic well-being and holistic health that is complementary to some more traditional health. So he's talking. There's a lot of kind of nutrition stuff. There's a lot of kind of mental health stuff. So if anyone's out and about, St. Paul's Square from I think 10 till 3 on Thursday.
Oh, amazing! Really? That's a good shout.
I like that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Book podcast that you're listening to or reading, San? What you're reading or listening to at the moment?
Oh, I haven't done a thing since I got the book last week. I haven't read a thing at all. But I did in a book or podcast. But I did download an NHS app, because my jeans were getting tight. I can't begin to tell you. So the NHS, and I thought, this has got to stop. So got the NHS app with the Active 10, and the weight loss one as well. And it's moderate activity. No one needs to go mental. It's just getting you to move bit by bit. And it's like, so your first goal is like 10-minute walks and things like that. Anyway, there's loads of dead interesting little things. So that weight loss one is by the NHS. And I thought, I'm going to mention that when I go on the show, because it's really good. There's all like weekly guys starting out, and whoever did it, it's really good. It's for people like me whose passion is not exercise. And it's just like, it motivates you a bit. Anyway, I've lost 4 pounds since Saturday. So there we go. It's like a horse. If I'm good and do something, I do strong quickly. So I thought, right. So I'm made up with it, yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. Well done.
Exercise this morning, Helen.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. What about you, Phil? What are you reading or listening to? Or is there something that you've listened or read in the past that you can share with us?
I'm a big fan of a chap called Reid Hoffman, who was the co-founder of LinkedIn.
Nice.
He is a fantastic person. He's got a podcast called Masters of Scale, and it's like every episode is like a film. It's so good. So like the first episode is Brian Chesney, who's the founder of Airbnb, and he just goes on this long winding journey of how Airbnb started, and the stories and the anecdotes are just, you just wouldn't believe them. It's one of those crazy things. Then you've got Facebook, Zuckerberg, then you've got Sheryl. It's just, and the people he knows, it's just unbelievable. So if you're into business, you're into growth and scaling your company, Masters of Scale is just an emotional roller coaster of business.
What's his name again, Phil?
Reid Hoffman.
I've got it here. Brilliant.
He's great.
Oh, well, that's on you. That'll be it. Oh my God, he's got a book, courses, events, newsletter.
He's got all the books. I've got all the books as well.
Look at that.
I love it.
Love him.
Brilliant. So we love a little list, don't we, San, of like little books and things. We love a
Oh,
little
yeah.
list.
Well, Helen needs them, tells me, and then I usually get them on Audible or something.
Well, I'm persevering with Audible. I'm persevering with it. It's not me favorite thing, but I am like persevering
Good
with
when
it.
you're in the car, though. If you're driving somewhere, it's really good.
Oh, my Uncle Ron said you're wasting away, San.
I might fall down the grid to walk out the door, Uncle Ron. I'm seriously not.
So I've just downloaded The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. So I've not read it or heard anything, but somebody recommended it. So I downloaded it because I have my little credit thing on Audible. So that's going to be me car walk and gym listen at the because I listen to the High Performance podcast, don't I, like every week and stuff, and I just love it. It's like my fave thing. I get that excited on a Monday when it comes out. Brilliant. Amazing. Well, our time is up, so a massive thank you to Phil. Massive thank you to Sandra. We wish Phil and the team behind Addy all the luck, and we'll share absolutely everything. And hopefully everybody will be seeing Addy everywhere now. So Phil, what is your closing quote mantra that you can close the show with?
I'm going to finish with a little bit of a cheesy, heartfelt one, if that's all right.
Love it.
Me and my 2 young children, we said if we ever had a coat of arms, you know, like a castle, you have to have a saying over your coat of arms, don't you? And I was thinking, what do I want my kids to grow up thinking every day? So we say, be brave, be kind, and be safe.
Oh, I love that. That's not cheesy. Be brave, be kind, and be safe.
I love that.
I love that. Brilliant.
Yep.
Hope you do get your coat of arms and put that on it. So, massive thank you, and we will see everybody next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.